This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning, Rabbi. We're learning Sefer Nechemia, and we're up to Parak Tes, and we're going to start from Pasuk Chaf, and the learning should be L'Zecher Nishmas, Mr. Nathan's brother, Aaron Pinchas ben Yehuda Lev, Nisham Shem Aliyah, should be Meil Yosef and Lamashbacha Abiyas Gael Tzedek. Okay, so we're learning a tefillah that not only is it a prayer, but it's a historical account of the way the Rebbeinu Shalom took care of the Jewish people from their inception, from the time that they were taken out of Mitzrayim, how for 40 years in the desert, Rebbeinu Shalom provided for them. He protected them with the Anani HaKavod. He gave them man. He gave them Ruach HaKodesh. He gave them the divine spirit. And their clothing were taken care of. Their shoes did not wear out. Their garments did not wear out. And we're up to Parak Tes Pasuk Chaf Beis. V'atitein lohem, and you gave to them mamlachos, kingdoms. You gave them kingdoms. Va'amamin, and you gave them nations. Now, what are the kingdoms that this refers to, and what are the nations? So, if you look in Metzudas, Metzudas David says that this refers to the nations of Sichain and Oig, which of course we know was on the east side of the Yarden. Vatachla came Amamin, nations, kingdoms and nations. Why is it referred to as differently? Well, I want to point out something very important. That in Pasuk Chav Gimel, it's going to talk about the Jewish people being brought to Eretz Yisrael. Pasuk Chav Beis, it talks about the Mamlachos and the Amamin that the Jewish people inherited. So the Malbim points out that the Eretz Sichain and Eretz Oig was actually land that was never promised to the Avos. The land of Sichain and the land of Oig was land that was not promised to the Avos, which is a very big chiddush.
We thought it was Kadmoni and Kinesi, no? We thought that was the ones that the three that Adam.
Well, the three to make it 10 might have been Ammon, Moav, right?
Yeah.
And Edom, right? But
part of
Sichain and Oig were different lands. Now, Sichain took over Moav. So since they took over Moav, therefore Sichain was Metaher Moav, right? But now we're talking about the Eretz Sichain and Oig. The Malbim's opinion is that this was land that was never promised to the Avos. The Malbim says if you look by the Brisa Ben Absarim, Sichain and Oig were not mentioned. And this is supported by our pasuk that it breaks up Eretz Yisrael and Eretz Sichain v'Oig. And he brings down over here that the Ramban disagrees, that the Ramban learns that the land of Sichain is under the umbrella of the Emoiri, and the countries that were occupied by Sichain and Oig were included in the promise, because Abraham was promised the land of the Emoiri. Now, why then, if that's the case, if this is included in the land of what was promised to Abraham, why is it broken up, the land of Sichain and Oig and the land of Eretz Yisrael? Well, the land of Sichain and Oig were promised to Abraham, but they were promised that they would get it eventually. That's Ba'achros Hayamim. So therefore, as opposed to the other parts of Eretz Yisrael, which they were promised they would receive in the current era, in other words, before the end of days. Okay. Vatachla came lepeah. So Rebbeinu Shalom, you gave them the kingdoms and the nations, and you divided them lepeah. What does the word lepeah mean? Lepeah means, no? A corner. Rashi says, Kamoi lios litzad zavis achas. The Jewish people were given a corner, they should be on one corner. Mochlakim, divided, beli lehisarev im goyei haratzos, without being mixed into the nations of the land. Okay? So in other words, the Jewish people in the land of Sichain and Oig were given a corner that they would not be mixed with the other nations living there. The Rabbi says something amazing.
He always does.
You said it, right? That the word peah could also mean the beginning corner, the first corner. What does that mean? So the Rabbi says that, what does it mean, the first corner? These Shvatim that received Eretz on the other Ever HaYarden, they were all Peah. They were all Bechayros. For instance, Ruvain, who got the Ever HaYarden? Ruvain, Gad, and Chatzi Shevet HaManashe. Ruvain was the Bechar of Leah. Gad was the Bechar of Zilpah. And Menashe was the Bechar of Yosef. So, interesting, I never realized this, that all three Shvatim that took Ever LaYarden, they were all Bechayros. Now, it's very interesting, even though I'm a Bechar, the verdict of history is the Bechayros always are failures. Cain and Hevel, Esav and Yaakov. Ruvain lost the Bechar. Ruvain Bechar Yata, Koich L'Reish Azini, but Pachas Kamayim Al Tais. Why is that? So it says by Ruvain that the Bechayros usually have type A personality. And that's what type A personality, everything has to be exactly the correct way, now, yekish, pintlach, the right time, a time is a time. Type A personality means they're go-getters. They're go-getters. But it's a dangerous midah.
Better be laid back.
It's a dangerous midah because sometimes you could be a go-getter and you could be very ambitious, but ambition sometimes drives a person to do improper things. And unfortunately, you see in the Tanakh that the Bechayros often, their midah of ambition caused them to err. See, by Cain and Hevel, Cain, he felt he had certain rights. Hevel was infringing on his. A Bechar, no question, feels entitled, they're deserving, and that's a challenge that Becharim have.
Of course, they get double.
The original Kohan?
The Becharim lost the Kahuna by the Yegel, right? So the verdict of history in the Chumash was their midah. It's a very good midah. It's a necessary midah. Ambition is very necessary, but it's also very dangerous. And what the Rabbi is highlighting is that all three Shvatim that wanted Ever LaYarden, they're all Becharim.
Nashu was not exactly one of us. One, he was, Moshe added him into
He threw him in? Okay. But he accepted it, right? I don't know if he had a choice. So, okay, so that's a very interesting idea. Fine. So, the pasuk continues. Vatachla came lepeah. They were divided to be a corner. Vayirshuas eretz Sichain. They inherited the land of Sichain. V'yas eretz melech Cheshvain, and the land of the king of Cheshvain. V'yas eretz Oig melech Habashan, and the land of Oig, king of the Bashan. Now, who killed Oig? Moshe Rabbeinu himself. Now, there is a medrash that Oig was Eliezer. Yeah, there is such a medrash that Oig was Eliezer Eved Avram. Okay. Uvenehem.
Oh, supposedly he wanted Avram to go to war.
You can't reconcile the Midrash.
I know.
Okay.
If Paul goes to Eliezer, why did Moshe kill him?
Because he was bad. He fought him in war. I don't know. Og was their enemy. They had to conquer the land. Uvneim herbisa. So you increased their children, like the stars of heaven. Vativiyim, and you brought them al haaretz, to the land Asher Amarta La'avoseim, that you said to their forefathers, Lavoi Lareshes, that they would come and inherit. Vayavoyu Habonim, the children came, but not that generation, right? That generation primarily died out in the Midbar. Vayirshu Ha'aretz, they inherited the land. Vatachna Lifneim, and they subdued before them. As Yoshvei Haaretz, the inhabitants of the land, Haknanim. Vatitneim Biyadam, you deliver them into the hands of the Jews. V'yas Malcheim, and their kings. V'yas Amamei Haaretz, and the nations of the earth. Lasos Lehem Kirtzainam, the Jews were able to do with them as they pleased. Now, Pasuk Chlav Daled. What? Now we know there, how many kings were there? Right? There were 32?
32 or 33. If you want to count the one.
Well, you're right. There were 31 kings that they fought. Right? Yeshua conquered the 31 kings. One made peace and one fled. Look at the Malbim. The Malbim says, Vayavoyu habanim vayirshu ha'aretz v'atachna. Siper, it relates, Ve'eza oifen yarshu ha'aretz. In what manner they inherited Eretz Yisrael. Shektas ha'umais hechnata lefneim. Some of the nations they subdued. And that is, Behem Girgashi shepana v'halachlei. The Girgashim fled. Yeah? The Hachivi, the Chivites, Shehishlimu imam v'nichnu v'loy lachamu. The Chivites made peace and subdued. The Yeser ha'umais and the other nations, Shalachmu imam, they were delivered into the hands of the Jews. So there are 33 kings. Girgashim fled, Chivi made peace, and the other 31, they were defeated in war. Okay. Pasuk Chafei. Vayilkadu Arim. They conquered cities, B'tzurais, that were fortified. Va'adama Shemena. And fat land. What does that mean, fat land? Lush, fertile land. Eretz Yisrael was a land of bounty. Vayirshu, and they inherited Batim Maleim Koltov. Houses filled with all good. By the way, in Va'aschanan, the pasuk says, Ki v'yacha Hashem el ha'aretz asher nishba l'aveisecha Arim gedolos asher lo banisi. You will come to cities that you didn't build. Batim maleim kol tov asher lo milesa, the pasuk says. You will have houses that are filled with all good that you did not fill. Ubayros chatzuvim asher lo chatzavta. You'll have hewn cisterns that you did not dig. Kramim v'zeisem. In other words, Hashem is saying you will come to Eretz Yisrael. Eretz Yisrael will be prefab. Eretz Yisrael was prefab. Everything was already prepared. Yeah, they didn't have to work. The Yersha, so now this pasuk in Nechemia is really citating and quoting, paraphrasing the pasuk in Devarim. Vayirshu batim aleim kol tov. You inherited houses full of all good. Bayros chatzuvim. Hewn cisterns, hewn pits. It says over here, what kind of pits are they? Mitsuda says, these are chafiras habar b'makim slam kari chatziva. If you have something carved out of stone, in the stone is called a chatziva, a yun, something which is yun. Okay, what? Okay, but the storage element of it is the bar. Kiramim, vineyards, v'zeisim, olive orchards, v'eitz ma'achal, and fruit trees, l'roiv, in plenty. V'yoichlu, they ate. V'yizbu, they satisfied. V'yashminu,
They got fat.
V'yisadnu, and they pampered themselves. B'tuvcha agado, in your great goodness. But this, of course, is a paraphrase of V'yishman, Yeshurun, V'yivat. Yeah? The Jews, they became fat, and they rebelled. In other words, the overindulgence of the physical element causes a person to veer off from Hashem. And sure enough, what happened next? Vayamru, they rebelled. Vayimradu, and they rebelled. Now what's the difference between Vayamru and Vayimradu? These are both words for rebellion. The Malbim says that Vayamru is the beginning of the rebellion, and Vayamridu is the full rebellion. Bach and you. First they, yeah.
This is like bougie. Bougie. You need a bowl.
Yeah. Vayimru bach, they rebelled against you. Vayashlichos Torascha acharei gavam. They threw your Torah behind their gavam, their bodies. In other words,
Behind their backs.
it was worthless. V'yas neviecha haragu. They killed your prophets. What's that talking about? 3 times. Well, we know Izebel killed all the Nevi'im except for the 100 that Ovadia was hiding. And we know the Navi Zechariah ben Yoyada was killed by King Yoash. And of course, Yeshaya HaNavi was killed by his grandson, Menashe. So they killed their Nevi'im. It was not a good thing. Being a rabbi back then, it was not a safe job. Yeah?
Menashe was not Chizkiah's kid?
He was. But who did Chizkiah marry?
So it was his uncle that he killed. Great uncle.
No.
Oh, his sister? You mean his sister got married? He gave it.
Oh,
What
his
the brothers
grandfather.
were Yeshayahu and Chizkiah?
Menashe, one second.
Chizkiyahu married.
Chizkiyahu
Shai's
married
daughter.
Menashe's daughter.
Chizkiyahu?
Actually, Chizkiyahu married Yeshaya's daughter.
Shai's daughter.
Yeshaya's daughter.
Right. So, Chizkiyahu.
Chizkiyahu married Yeshaya's daughter. And they produced
His
Menashe. So that means, right, Yeshaya's daughter was the mother of Menashe. Right? Fine. What happened? The Nevi'im testified. Well, actually means they warned, but the warning is often done in front of Edim. Lahashiva melecha. They warned the Jewish people that they should return to you. Vayasu, and they acted with ne'atzois gedolos, great anger, great maddening. Now, with the Jewish people acted in a maddening way. So what did the Rebbeinu Shalom have to do? He had to give them to the hands of their oppressors. Now remember the word sarehem. Okay? And they oppressed them. Now what period of history is this talking about? The Malbim identifies the Shoftim. Okay? This occurred during the era of the Shoftim. Now, the period of the Shoftim...
Why is he going back so many centuries?
This is like a crash course in Nevi'im. This way, in case you didn't learn the first 20 books, you get to this... because basically, what is this? This is a tefillah of the Levium. Okay, remember, you have to go back to the beginning of the parak. Parak Tes Pasuk Dalet. That the Levium stood up on the step. Yeshua, Bani, Kadmiel, Shevanya, Buni, Sherebia, Bani, Chenani, and they cried out to Hashem, and they blessed Hashem, and this is part of their tefillah. This is part of their tefillah. They're talking about God's. Before you're mispala for something, you have to praise Hashem. So they're talking about how, despite the fact throughout history we got Hashem angry, the Egel, He saved us. We rebelled, He saved us. The Shoftim, which lasted for about 400 years, and it is discussed in Sefer Shoftim, in Perkei Avos it says, Moshe Kibel Torah Sinai, Masara Yeshua Lezakenim. The Zakenim in Perkei Avos is the era of the Shoftim. Who was the first Navi? The first Navi was Shmuel. Eli was the last of the Shoftim, the Zakenim, and Eli, who himself was a Navi, taught Shmuel, and Shmuel was the first of the Nevi'im. So, now, Hashem gave them to the hands of their oppressors, Vayatzeiru lahem, they oppressed them. Uva'es tzarasam, and in their times of oppression, Yitzaku eilecha, they cried out to you. V'yata, and you, Mishamayim, from heaven, Tishma. Anyone here know Lashon HaKodesh? What does Tishma mean? You will. Here, tough in the beginning of a word is you will. So what does it mean? that we're saying in the times of the Shoftim, the Jews rebelled, and you gave them oppressors, and they cried out to you, and you will hear them. It already happened in the past. So Rashi says, Hayisa shoimeya. You would hear. Now, by the way, in Hebrew, the future tense could mean you will. It could also mean you should. Like, I'm telling you what you should do. You didn't do it yet, and I don't know if you will, but you should. But it could also mean you would. You would. This is something that was so common to you. This is something that you always do, that I could say about something you did in the past, that this is something you would do. Something that you repeatedly did.
You did the Bar Mitzvah.
What?
You did the Bar Mitzvah.
Yeah, and we're going to see this is something that repeated so many times. Ucharachamecha harabim, and in your great mercy, titein lohem moishiyim, you gave them saviors, v'yoshiyim miyatzayim, and you saved them from their enemy. Now listen carefully. In this pasuk, they were given tsarehem, they cried out, and Rebbe Shem is rachamecha harabim, he gave them moishiyah. So you have, bear in mind, three things. This, they got Sarehem. Rebbe Shem used Rachamecha Harabim, and he gave them Moishiyim. However, Uchenayach Lahem, but as soon as there was reprieve, as soon as life was easier for them again, Yashuvu, they went back, Las Yisrael Lefanecha, to do bad before you. Va'atazveim, and you forsook them, Biad Oivehem, in the hand of their enemy. Not Sarehem, oppressors, but Oivehem, enemy. Vayirdu vahem, not vayotzeru. They oppressed them. Vayashuvu, they repented. Vayitzakucha, they cried out to you. V'yatum mishamayim tishma, but not, you weren't Moshiach them. V'satzilem, you saved them. And it wasn't barachamecha harabim, it was karachamecha. It was with your mercy, not barachamecha harabim. Rabbi sees it many times. So the Malbim points out that the first time they sinned, God only gave them tsarehem. What's a meitzar? A meitzar is he oppresses you for his benefit. Not because he hates you, but it's for his benefit. But an oyev hates you. Yeah? The second time the Jews repeated their sin, it was an oyev as opposed to a meitzar. The second time is vayirdu bahem, not vayatzalahem. The first time God saved them. Save them means we were able to destroy the enemy. The second time was just hatzalah. He saved us from the enemy, but we did not defeat them. The first time it was barachamecha harabim. It was with great mercy. That's why it was a Yeshua. Second time it was not barachamecha harabim. It was just a hatzalah. There's a difference between a Yeshua and a hatzalah. Yeshua is not only being saved from the enemy, but defeating the enemy. A Hatzalah is just being saved by the enemy. Now I want to point out something that I found very interesting, comparing Parshas Vayera to Chayesara, and it's an idea that we've mentioned.
Does anybody
I'm blocking.
Anybody with a white van with CFR is blocking the ambulance? Anybody with a white van?
No, I'm blocking you. I'm sorry.
No. I'm not worried about me. I'm worried about the ambulance.
From the Bristol around?
Bristol's still here.
Yeah, come again.
Okay. Vayer and Chayesara. There's an idea, and we've spoken about this in the past. There are two words to say enemy, right? We've spoken about this many times. Oyev and Sainei. Oyev and Sainei. And Esav is traditionally called Sainei, right? Halacha b'yadua Esav Sainei liYaakov. And the Yishmael is called Oyev. And some say a Sainei wants to destroy you religiously, and an Oyev wants to destroy you physically. I found it very interesting, and it's something I just noticed this year, that at the end of the Akedah, what does it say? The bracha that Hashem gives Avraham Avinu is what? V'yirash. Yeah. it says what? Ki varech avarechacha, v'harba arba zaracha k'choy v'eshaman v'chachol asher asasayam, v'yirash zaracha eis shar oyevav. You'll inherit the gate of your oyev. Parshas Chayei Sarah. Lavan and Rivka's mother give them a bracha. By the way, do you know who Rivka's mother was? Someone called me Motzei Shabbos. They probably have some, their kid has some kind of trivia question.
Yeah,
they have to answer.
she's mentioned, but
Who's Rivka's mother? It's not mentioned in Chumash.
We always ask about Abraham's mother.
wait a minute. Who was
Amasloi Bas Carnival.
who was poisoned? Milka?
Besula was.
Sula.
So Rivka's mother, according to the Medrash, was Devora, the Menekes Rivka. According to the Medrash, was the mother of Rivka. Now listen to this. Parshas Chayei Sarah, they tell Rivka, Achoisenu, At Hayi La'alfei Revava. V'yirash Zarech Eis Shar Sainav. By the Akedah, they give Abraham the bracha, you'll inherit Shar Oyevav. And when Rivka gets married, she gets Shar Sainav.
She's the mother of Esau.
Right? Very pashat. That by the Akedah, Yishmael stood behind. Abraham says, Shavu lachem payim achamar. You're going to be a nobody. Yitzchak is going to be the main progeny. So the bracha by the Akedah was that your son Yitzchak should defeat Oyevav, the Oyev. Who's the Oyev? Yishmael. But to Rivka is going to be the mother of Yaakov and Esav. So they say, you're Zera. We know, Ki bi Yitzchak yikar lecha Zera. That's referring to Yaakov. So Yaakov should inherit Shar Soinav. The Soine is Esav. Yeah?
Kind of think that, hey, I thought about that.
Right? I don't know if I ever spoke that. Yeah?
We talked about Esau, who's the Malach, who's the man of Nachash, and one is the South.
Right.
The pasuk that they bring for Esau, for Boshes,
Imecha?
yeah, there's a pasuk. There's the word Oivav is in there.
By Esav?
By
Yishmael, right. Right.
If Devorah was with Rivka,
Yeah.
how could she have given birth to Rachel? You said, who did Devorah give birth to? Rivka.
Yeah.
That's why they sent her with her.
When Yaakov was coming back,
Yeah,
so it says Aloin Bachus, right? Vatamas Devorah Menekes Rivka.
Yeah.
So some say not only she was Menekes Rivka because she nursed Rivka. She was Rivka's mother. Okay. Let us proceed. Pasuk Chavtes. Vatoad bahem. You warned them. La'ashivam al Torah that they should return to your Torah. Vehema heizedu. They acted wantonly. Right? That's why Jews like Chinese food. Yeah? V'lo yishamu l'mitzvaysecha. They did not listen to your mitzvahs. Uv'mishpatecha chatuvam. And in your commands and in your mishpatim they sinned. Mitzvahs refer ben adam la'makam, mishpatecha ben adam la'chaver, asher yasa ha'adam v'chaya b'hem. The mitzvahs that man will perform and live thereby.
So which one was it that Hezidu? That's between Adam and Makam?
I believe.
Adam and Makam. Only Hezidu like Shamu Mitzvah.
Yeah, right.
The Chatubam is between Adam and Chaver. Mishpatim is something that you can do.
V'mishpatech is ben adam l'chaver, right? And the Malbim says, asher yasa adam v'chaya b'hem. It's the ben adam l'chaver that allows for the successful living in this world, right? Vayidnu kasef sereres, they turn their shoulder, they turn their back. V'arpam hikshu, they stiffen their necks. V'lo yishamel, they didn't listen. V'atimshech aleim shanim rabbis. This continued for many years. V'atoad bam, you warned them. Baruchacha, through your spirit. B'yad nebiyacha, through your prophets. V'lei hazinu, they did not give ear. V'atit name, and you deliver them. B'yad amei haratzos, to the nations of the land. But uverachamecha harabim layasisam kala. Through your abundant mercy, you did not destroy them. V'layazavtam, you did not forsake them. Kikel chanam v'rachamata. You are a compassionate and merciful God. V'yata lekeinu, and now God, hakel, hagadol, hagibar, v'hanoira. Oh, right, we know Ezra and Nechemia restored the hakel, hagadol, hagibar, v'hanoira. Shomer abris v'achesed, the one who preserves the covenant and the kindness. Al yimad lefanecha, don't diminish in your eyes, don't disparage. Es kol hatla asher mitzvahasnu, all of our suffering and all of our difficulties. In other words, don't underestimate that, Hashem. Hashem, please take into account our tremendous suffering. Lemlachenu, the suffering of our kings. L'sarenu, to our princes, L'chayanenu, our priests, L'nvienu, L'abeisenu, L'chol Amecha, Mimei Malchei Ashur, from the days of the king of Ashur, Ad Hayom Hazeh, until this day. Now, when did the king Ashur come and take us away, take away the 10 Shvatim? About 130 years before the destruction of the first Beis HaMikdash.
How many years?
130. Okay. Okay, Pasuk Lamed Gimel. This is a pasuk that is oft repeated in Slichos. V'ata tzadik al kol haba aleinu. You are righteous for everything that befalls us. Ki emes asis, you have acted in truth. V'anachnu hirshanu, we were the ones that have acted wickedly. V'yes melachenu, our kings. Sarenu, kayhanenu, v'abaisenu, our princes, priests, fathers, lo yasu tarasecha. V'lo yikshivu mitzvaysecha. They did not listen to your mitzvahs, your commands, that you warned them. Vehem, and they.
Going back to the back part when they just said that in Pasuk Lamed Beis that the Hashem should not do that. I mean, Hashem should do it.
Right. Well,
now we're going back to the bad part again.
We're asking Hashem, we're saying, Ribbon Shalom, even though we've acted bad, don't undermine our suffering. In other words, that should be taken into account in terms of how you continue to deal with us in the future. Okay, Rabbi, so we'll hold it over here.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.